Hello, I'm Bakhtiar Sonov and you are watching A News. Let's see the top stories shaping our world. Donald Trump is to chair the Gaza meeting at the White House today. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Turkey, the Gulf states or Europe could host talks with Russia. And Tianjin gears up to host the largest ever Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. U.S. President Donald Trump is leading a meeting on Gaza at the White House today. President's envoy Steve Witkoff says Washington expects the conflict to be settled by the end of this year. The United States is also stepping up diplomatic contacts as Secretary of State Marco Rubio is meeting Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar in Washington. All this comes after a night of heavy explosions in Gaza, with bright flashes lighting up the sky. Witkoff also said Israel was open to continuing discussions with Hamas. According to him, Hamas had signaled it was open to a settlement. Now to Eastern Europe, where Ukraine is calling on its allies to accelerate work on security guarantees and says it's also open to talks with Russia in neutral countries. But on the ground, the fighting continues, with Ukrainian forces repelling a major Russian push in Dnipropetrovsk.
Potential peace talks with Russia could be hosted by Turkey, the Gulf states or European countries, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. In his nightly address, he stressed it is now up to the United States to put pressure on Moscow. Zelensky has repeatedly called for a meeting with Vladimir Putin, though Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov insists no agenda has been prepared.
In the future, everything will depend solely on the will of world leaders, primarily on the United States of America, to put pressure on Russia. New steps are needed, new pressure, sanctions, tariffs. All this must be on the table. We talked about this with General Kellogg yesterday. We are working with the Americans very thoroughly. After our meeting in Washington, we have a new basis for joint work.
At the same time, Zelensky urged its allies to speed up work on long-term security guarantees. After talks with Britain's Defence Chief Admiral Anthony Radakin on Tuesday, he said clarity and transparency were essential. US President Donald Trump, however, noted Washington has not yet discussed specific guarantees but has reaffirmed America's commitment to support Ukraine. On Monday, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with several European counterparts, including leaders from the UK, Finland and the European Union, to coordinate positions on security guarantees. Both European leaders and Zelensky have asked Rubio to take the lead in negotiations.
And the discussion we had on Thursday night with Trump, maybe the basic spirit was that I tried to gently express that it seems very unlikely that Putin will come to the same table as President Zelensky in particular. Well, a week later on Monday, and we received confirmation of this from Foreign Minister Lavrov, who questioned Zelensky's constitutional position as the leader of Ukraine. And I'm trying to convey the message to Trump all the time that this is typical Russian delaying tactic and they are very skilled at this. And now it's just a matter of time when President Trump will react to this and in what way.
Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Ukrainian forces confirmed that Russia has crossed into the eastern Dnipropetrovsk region. Commanders described it as the first assault of such scale in the area, but said the advance was halted. Moscow has long claimed progress in this direction, yet Kiev insists Russian troops have barely moved beyond the regional border.
The Kremlin said it rejects any European proposals that could involve NATO troops in Ukraine, calling such a deployment unacceptable. Moscow argued that NATO's military presence was among the root causes of the war and insisted it would not allow it on Ukraine's territory. At the same time, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov praised the U.S. mediation efforts, calling the recent Alaska summit meaningful and constructive. Ukraine, meanwhile, is working with NATO and EU partners to draft binding guarantees aimed at deterring future Russian aggression. Kiev has ruled out Moscow as a guarantor, insisting that only Western-backed commitments can ensure its security. US President Donald Trump has escalated a trade dispute with one of the world's largest economies, imposing steep new tariffs on Indian goods. The move comes amid concerns over India's purchases of discounted Russian oil, and exporters are already feeling the impact.
Donald Trump has imposed a 50% tariff on most US imports from India, doubling the duties first announced earlier this month. The White House says the move is in response to India's continued purchase of Russian oil, which Washington argues indirectly supports Russia's war in Ukraine. The new tariffs threaten significant disruption to global supply chains and serious losses for Indian exporters. In Kanpur, India's leather hub, factory workers are already feeling the pinch. Some exporters hope for a resolution similar to China's previous trade disputes, but many fear the damage could be long-lasting.
Whatever orders we had from the US are now null. Customers have told us to halt previous orders. Many factories, which were totally dependent on the US market, have stopped all work.
Several orders have been put on hold and some orders have been cancelled. This has created instability in some factories. I think this will cause a far-reaching impact in the future.
And in Surat, the centre of India's diamond industry, business is slowing as US buyers hesitate ahead of the tariff hike. Factory owners say rough diamond prices are rising, while orders are dropping, putting jobs at risk for hundreds of thousands of workers.
My estimate is that more than 100,000 diamond workers will lose jobs if the tariff isn't changed.
Some larger exporters are exploring alternatives, such as routing goods through Dubai or targeting other markets in Asia, Europe and the Middle East. But for smaller manufacturers and workers reliant on US orders, the future looks uncertain. Despite the setbacks, scenes at wholesale markets in Delhi show continued domestic trade, though experts warn that the ripple effect of these tariffs could be felt for months to come.
Washington is hosting high-level economic discussions between the United States and China. A senior Chinese delegation is in the capital this week, aiming to ease trade tensions and build on earlier rounds of negotiations. The talks come as both sides extend a fragile tariff truce through to November, giving industries brief relief. Our Mahnur Maktoum has more from Beijing.
A senior Chinese trade delegation led by Li Changgang is traveling to Washington this week to reopen the US-China trade talks, marking the highest level Chinese economic visit to the US since 2023. The visit follows previous rounds of negotiations held in Geneva, London, and most recently Stockholm, where both sides sought to extend the current pause on tariffs and build momentum for deep engagement. The visit also comes amid a fresh 90-day pause on tariffs, which maintains US tariffs on Chinese goods at 30% and Chinese tariffs on US goods at 10%. This tariff truce, which is set to last through November 10th, follows a series of escalations earlier this year under a sweeping retaliatory measures, which were rolled back after the Geneva talks in May. This extension provides temporary relief to US retail and toys, as well as Chinese electronics, machinery, and critical mineral markets such as rare earths. Mahnur Maktoum, A-News, Beijing.
Tianjin is finalizing preparations to host the largest ever Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, which focuses on maintaining regional security and development. The city says it has upgraded infrastructure, improved public services, and introduced cultural and logistical enhancements to ensure a smooth and successful event for international delegations.
Leaders from Africa, Asia, and Europe will be meeting up in China's northern port city of Tianjin at the end of the month for the largest ever Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. The gathering aims to review past cooperation, chart future strategies for the next decade for development and regional security, as well as adopt key documents. These include the Tianjin Declaration and a 10-year roadmap through to 2035. In readiness for the summit, the city has carried out a wide range of logistical and cultural upgrades, from enhancing international service facilities to introducing SCO-themed decorations. At rail transit stations, English directional signs have been standardized, and multilingual translation equipment has been installed to assist visiting delegations.
We have posted pictures of the SCO on the light boxes, passenger information system screens and theme trains. We have set up multilingual translation machines at 63 core stations, which can support translation in over 40 languages.
Authorities have also strengthened traffic and public services using data and dynamic deployment to ensure smooth travel. Tianjin Railway Station is enhancing real-time monitoring and contingency plans to manage passenger flows, while the Power Department has introduced intelligent patrols, robots, and infrared detectors to guarantee reliable electricity supply.
After months of work in a meticulous and orderly manner, the preparatory tasks covering thousands of items in 10 sections, including environmental improvement, venue optimization, atmosphere creation, cultural and artistic display, meeting service, guest reception, and volunteer service have all been completed.
This year's SCO Summit will gather leaders from more than 20 countries and representatives of 10 international organizations, making it the most extensive meeting in the group's history and highlighting the organization's expanding global influence.
Germany will resume admitting vulnerable Afghans stranded in Pakistan after a month of delay, a foreign ministry official said on Tuesday. Around 2,000 Afghans approved for relocation to Germany have been left in limbo after Berlin froze admissions under its protection program. The suspension sparked lawsuits with advocacy groups now saying families who want court rulings will soon fly on commercial flights. Germany's Interior Ministry insists only those with binding approvals will be accepted after individual reviews and security checks, while exit permits from Pakistan remains necessary. Spain's government has declared 16 regions as disaster zones after the country battled massive wildfires that officials call the greatest environment catastrophes in recent years. Authorities say the move will unlock aid for residents, businesses and local councils to help rebuild the areas.
The Spanish government has declared municipalities affected by the 113 wildfires this summer as emergency areas. Blazes that flared across the country this summer, particularly in the west of the country, have ravaged more than 400,000 hectares, killed 4 people, and forced thousands to temporarily evacuate from their homes. Officials are calling it one of the greatest environmental catastrophes in recent years and say it is too early to assess the full impact of the burned areas.
To give you an idea of the magnitude of the tragedy, the declaration of areas affected by a civil protection emergency covers 16 Spanish regions. Although the emergency episode has not concluded, as I have pointed out, it is clear that we are facing one of the greatest environmental catastrophes of recent years.
The government's move to classify the affected areas as emergency zones will unlock direct aid, tax breaks and other assistance for communities. Much of southern Europe is experiencing one of its worst wildfire seasons in 2 decades. The blazes, which began during a 2-week heat wave, have burned through the largest area in Spain since records began in 2006.
We will return after a short break. Stay with us.
and welcome to SCO Shoreline Talks, co-produced by CGTN and A News from Azerbaijan.
As global multipolarity and economic globalization accelerate.
With the SCO Summit in Tianjin coming up from August 31st to September 1st, how will the organization promote a fairer international order?
The Shanghai Cooperation Organization was actually founded on the principles of the Shanghai Spirit.
The future for SCO is very bright, very promising, and in the future I think it will play more role than it is playing now.
Chinese investment in Uzbekistan has surpassed $10 billion.
Kazakhstan was able to use Middle Corridor as a strategic hub linking China and with the rest of the European countries by the Caspian Seas.
Welcome back to A News. Now we turn our attention to the escalating crisis in Gaza. Following a night of heavy explosions lighting up the sky, the United States is intensifying diplomatic efforts to end the conflict. President Donald Trump is leading a meeting at the White House, while Secretary of State Marco Rubio is meeting Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar in Washington. Washington hopes for a settlement by the end of this year, with both Israel and Hamas signaling openness to discussions. Meanwhile, the United Nations has called for justice after an Israeli strike on a Gaza hospital killed at least 20 people, including 5 journalists and 4 health workers, drawing widespread condemnation from global leaders. Joining us now is Nir Bams, political analyst who joins us from Jerusalem. Mr. Bams, welcome to the program.
Good to be here.
Mr. Bams, how would you assess the current situation in Gaza following last night's explosions?
Well, I think we are gearing and getting closer to perhaps the final touchdown. Either a military operation that will aim to first take again, occupy the city of Gaza in order to dismantle the Hamas infrastructure in the city. Either a deal. And when the mediators and the Americans, the Israeli government and Hamas, each to their sides, are trying to pull and push until the right moment may rise or may come, so a compromise can be made and a deal can be implemented.
Mr. Bams, what do you make of the U.S. administration's efforts to mediate a settlement by the end of this year?
I think the U.S. is saying and have been saying, because they've been involved in this for quite some time now, that they would very much to see an end for this war. I think many Israelis, many of them are literally now in the streets, would like to see the same thing. However, what Israelis would like to see is an end of the war with all the 20 live and then the rest of the captures who are no longer with us are actually going to be back home. Hamas offered a deal that was more partial and did not correspond to the remaining Israeli condition. And the government needs to bring an answer that is more definitive, whether the new assessed proposal that is came from the mediators can be a starter. I think what the Israeli government is doing is basically saying, look, we're getting the soldiers drafted. We are beginning the preparation for the operation in order to put the last push pressure against Hamas. And with some hope that that will actually help the negotiation process and that will be able to find an end for the war, the conditions that Israel will put, which is something that Hamas certainly has some issues with, is to make sure that Hamas is no longer there in Gaza and making sure that we have a structure for the day after that will be able to secure not only Gaza, but also the future security of Israel.
Mr. Bams, how credible is Israel's signal that it's open to continuing talks with Hamas?
I think the signals are serious. There is a team that's working on this. And I think that we're not do not need to underestimate the amount of pressure from the Israeli public on this point. They're literally, the last few days have seen the country shut down in a number of hours because the people, the families, and many others are demanding an end for this. This has been almost 2 years, and we would like to make sure that before we're going to mark another October 7th, second anniversary, and that we'll actually have a solution for this question of Gaza. And perhaps even broadly, perhaps we'll be able to create a broader opening for Gaza, for the Palestinians, for Lebanon, for Syria. And I think many in Israel and many in the region would actually like to see that this very difficult 2 years will actually help us pave a new and a better way for the future.
In your opinion, how does the recent hospital strike impact the prospects for a ceasefire?
Certainly an incident that should not have happened. We have seen the initial investigation that points on a number of issues that are a source of concern. The IDF is investigating and will issue a more thorough report. But there is a zoom out place that there's been many casualties in this war on all sides. This should not have happened, but perhaps another incentive to signal to the different sides that perhaps we should try harder to find a solution for this and to reach an end for this in order to save some future lives in Gaza, in Israel, and broadly in the region.
So what are the implications of this incident for Israel's international standing, especially with its allies?
Well, again, not positive, but it's war. And it's very clear that there's sometimes during a time of war, there are incidents that are not pleasant and that there are casualties. There seems to have been, and this is unfortunate, not just in the context of this particular incident, but Hamas has been taking positions in hospitals, in public institutions. And since there was a signal, there was a clear signal that Hamas was using this property, and the intel revealed that, there was a response which actually killed the target. But unfortunately, with a larger radius of people who were not Hamas, who became victims. That's, again, should not have happened, but that's partially the price of war.
Mr. Bums, what do you think? How might the United States' increased diplomatic engagement affect the conflict's dynamics on the ground?
The United States is in touch with all the parties. It certainly is in touch with Israel. It certainly is in touch with the mediators, with Qatar, with Egypt, with Saudi Arabia. The more it pushes, the more it can signal to all the parties that this is the time for a deal. But just remember that after almost 2 years of war, Israel and this government is not going to budge or move its positions unless it sees a solution that is really able to get Hamas out of Gaza. Now, of course, this became a consensus. Even the Arab League distanced itself from Hamas. I don't think there is any credible player in the region, perhaps Iran, that is willing to vouch and push Hamas to a position of power in Gaza. Hamas has been the source of the demise and the suffering of the Palestinians for now a number of decades, and certainly since its power in Gaza. So we need to find a way, not only to end this particular chapter, but also to make sure that the future chapter is not going to be a repeat of the past. And if Hamas is going to stay in one way or another in Gaza, we're not going to be able to ensure that there's not going to be another war. And therefore, we must end this in a serious way. And therefore, the position of the Israeli government here is not unsensible.
Mr. Bums, how might regional players such as Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey influence the ongoing negotiations?
I think that the regional players, particularly the Egyptians and the Emiratis, who have been very, very involved here, and of course the Qataris who have been mediating this, have a lot to do. They have the ability to speak with Hamas and to speak with other stakeholders on the Palestinian side in order to push not only the negotiations, but also to offer some ideas that can correspond with the day after. Israel is not going to allow Hamas coming in, but Israel may be more flexible when it comes to the suggestions of either the Egyptians or our partners from the Gulf, who would say that they're willing to come and assist with the day after management of Gaza. These ideas are very important. In many ways, they are the key. If in previous rounds of wars and escalation, this has been really bilateral. I think here the regional dimension has been more critical. And I think without a regional approach, I don't think we'll be able to get ourselves out of this conflict.
And looking ahead, what are the realistic scenarios for a sustainable resolution to the conflict?
We've had a number of windows of opportunity to reach a deal or an end of hostilities. We have not done that yet. I think we have a serious window that is opening again, and I think that the statements of the Americans correspond to an effort to try to end this round of conflict, taken tens of thousands of lives. That is devastating. Also, Israel from the inside, aside of the casualty, the kidnapped, and everything that happened here since October. I think we all need this. But again, it's important to make sure that we're thinking not just how to end this particular chapter and reach a ceasefire of 60 days, but we really need to think and envision a day after that we'll be able to pave a new path for the future. And this path cannot include groups like Hamas in Gaza, or I would also say Hezbollah in Lebanon. Because these are the groups that have taken, by proxy, have taken all their energy, and rather than creating life and peace for their own people, have created conflict, rage and carnage, and eventually forced Israel to respond in a kinetic way and really create what we're now seeing in Gaza. We all would like to avoid this, not just now to end it, but to avoid this for the future. So we need to make sure that whatever we do is going to be sustainable, which is the word that you've used, and that's the most important word here.
Nir Bams, thank you very much for your time and insights. We appreciate your time.
Good to be here.
After the break, we'll look at the key stories shaping the region. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Afghanistan in the summer of 2025.
It's been 4 years since the Taliban came back to power in Afghanistan.
The biggest achievement, obviously, is ending the occupation of Afghanistan. We will strive towards, after 50 years of conflict, to turn Afghanistan into a hub of cooperation amongst the many stakeholders.
When the previous Western-backed government collapsed, thousands in the country scrambled, fleeing in fear of persecution.
دولت فقط می تقاضا را داریم که کم کار زیاد کنه، جوانا در کار مشغول شوند، دیگه شوند تا اصلا مجبور نشن برن به دیگه جای مسافرت کنن یا اوج سختی ها را طی کنن.
Mostly maybe the media's telling something about the Afghanistan, about the fight, but they shouldn't believe such a thing.
There are projects to kickstart the economy in the works, The Turkmenistan-Afghanistan-Pakistan-India gas pipeline is one of them.
We're also working diligently with our counterparts within Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, and Turkey to realize the Lapis Lazuli route.
We're here at the Port Torgundi in Afghanistan's western province of Herat. This is one of two starting points of the Lapis Lazuli corridor, the other one being in the north of the country.
بنابراین هر قدر ترانزیت یا مسیر راه‌های انتقالی بیشتر شه، این موثرتر برای اقتصاد کشور.
Welcome back to A News. Now we are going to take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. In an interview with Al Arabiya TV channel, President Ilham Aliyev drew a clear distinction between Azerbaijan's relations with the Trump administration and those with the Biden administration.
President Donald Trump can restore America's global admiration and bring peace to many regions. President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, expressed confidence about US leader on his interview to Al Arabiya TV channel.
With Biden administration, it was zero. It was a disaster. So Trump is absolutely different. He is a person which not only, I'm sure, will make America again great, he will make America again to be admired, as we all did in all times, when America was a symbol of prosperity, of freedom, of development. He will do it, I'm sure. If he managed in 6 months to bring peace to so many locations, he will do it, but he has a strong resistance. The system is against him. And also what I'd like to underline, especially what touched me, was how he behaved during that assassination attempt. That cannot be played. No speechwriter, no political advisor can do it. That's how the person reacts. He's a brave man and great leader, and I am proud, really proud, that he treats me as a friend.
The Azerbaijani leader also stated that the 8th of August, Washington agreement marks the end of confrontation with Armenia, and he forecast full reconstruction of liberated regions within the next few years.
And actually, what was initialed in Washington on 8th of August was based on Azerbaijani version of how we see interstate relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan should be framed. So negotiation lasted, as I said, for several years and ended in Washington with great support from President Trump and his team. Together with Armenian colleague, we nominated President Trump for Nobel Peace Prize. He really deserves it. As I said in my comments in Washington, in several months, he made a miracle in Africa, in Asia, in Southern Caucasus. And this is his character, this is his nature. He wants peace. He is a person which is absolutely different from a traditional image of Western leader. He is very friendly, he is very generous.
President Aliyev praised Trump's courage, noting the intense media scrutiny he endured.
He demonstrated great courage and dignity, and to come back in America with all these frogs in the swamp, you know, like USAID, Radio Liberty, fake news like Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Newsweek. all of them were against him. All of them were demonizing him the same way how they demonized me, for instance.
In his interview, President Ilham Aliyev highlighted the historic peace agreement with Armenia, emphasizing the importance of unity in the Muslim world and the strategic significance of the Zangezur corridor, while also addressing regional relations and media narratives.
China and Saudi Arabia look set to strengthen their trade and investment cooperation as they meet in Beijing to align the Belt and Road Initiative with Vision 2030. It's after negotiations for a free trade agreement had stalled over concerns from the Gulf Cooperation Council that China could flood the market with cheap goods.
Beijing hosted high-level dialogue on Tuesday as officials and state-owned enterprises from China and Saudi Arabia met to align China's Belt and Road Initiative with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. The session marked a significant step in strengthening bilateral cooperation, with business leaders and policymakers from both countries exploring new avenues for economic and trade partnerships.
The Belt and Road Initiative and Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 are deeply integrated, driving practical economic and trade cooperation between the two countries to a new level. China is Saudi Arabia's largest trading partner, while Saudi Arabia has for many years remained China's top trading partner in the Arab region. In the first half of this year, bilateral trade reached $53.9 billion.
The dialogue focused on key areas such as manufacturing, renewable energy, and the digital economy, highlighting opportunities for sustainable growth. Saudi Vision 2030, which aims to diversify the kingdom's economy beyond oil, was identified as complementary to China's global infrastructure and investment strategies.
We are a main contributor to a lot of activities in the contracting industry and in the manufacturing and trading activities. We remain dedicated in supporting whatever activities between both countries, in ensuring both visions are achieved, with any financial support needed from our side.
Participants described the discussions as a model for how global initiatives and national strategies can converge to create long-term economic benefits. Both sides agreed that closer alignment between the BRI and Vision 2030 would help sustain growth and strengthen trade and investment ties for years to come.
Pakistan is pressing ahead with mass evacuations of people in the Punjab province, where relentless monsoon rains have already displaced thousands of families. Authorities warn that more bad weather is due over the coming weeks, which could cause dams and rivers to overflow.
Pakistan continues to grapple with devastating floods as hundreds of thousands of people are forced to leave their homes. More than 150,000 have been displaced in the country's Punjab province, where intense monsoon rains have ravaged communities in recent weeks. The Sutlej River has reached a high flood level, prompting authorities to issue a high alert for the region.
Currently, the river's water flow stands at 122,000 cusecs, indicating a high flood level. However, many residents remain hesitant to leave their homes. We're prioritizing voluntary evacuations, providing transport services to those who want to relocate. So far, we've assisted over 5,000 people and evacuated more than 800 cattle. We're not resorting to forced evacuations at this time, focusing on supporting those who choose to leave.
The release of excess water from neighbouring India's dams threatens to further flood parts of Punjab, which serves as the country's breadbasket and is home to half of its 240 million people. Pakistan's National Disaster Management Authority said it had issued an advance alert to officials. Evacuations of people from the area are underway in several eastern districts of the province. The authority also warned that heavy rainfall was forecast across several Indian states, which could swell rivers and streams flowing into Pakistan. Authorities say floods across the country have killed 785 people since the monsoon began in late June and warn of 2 more rain spells before the 10th of September.
Almaty has been facing one of its most serious environmental challenges for years: air pollution. Kazakhstan's largest city ranks among the world's most polluted, seriously affecting the health of millions of residents. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimurzina reports from Almaty with more details.
Almaty has been struggling with consistently high air pollution levels for the past decade. Monitoring shows that from 2015 to 2024, 9 out of 10 years recorded the city's air quality as heavily polluted, with only 2017 classified as moderately elevated. Earlier this year, the Swiss air quality company IQ Air ranked Almaty as the world's most polluted major city in real time. According to the Climate Change and Green Energy Project Office for Central Asia, over 2.3 million residents are exposed daily to air containing toxic substances beyond safe limits. The city's location worsens the issue. Situated in a basin at the foot of the Ilia-Latau Mountains, natural airflow is limited. Mountain and valley winds trap pollutants, especially in the northern areas. Also, uncontrolled large-scale construction over the last 20 years has only compounded the problem, with thick smoke blanketing the city for more than 6 months each year. Experts identified the main pollution sources as vehicle emissions, coal and wood heating in private homes on the outskirts, and emissions from 3 major thermal power plants. Heating with stoves adds particulate matter and toxic gases. Environmental specialists agreed that addressing this issue requires a comprehensive strategy. Key measures include upgrading transport infrastructure, transitioning to cleaner fuels, tightening emission controls on power plants, and expanding gas supply to suburban neighborhoods. Also, regular monitoring and timely public updates about air quality are crucial to minimize health risks. Air pollution in Almaty is not only an environmental challenge, but also a social one affecting millions of lives. And new technologies and stricter environmental regulations are expected to be introduced this year to help improve the situation. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
Archaeologists in Georgia have unearthed a 1.8 million year old human jawbone. The find at the Orozmani site south of Tbilisi is shedding new light on how our earliest ancestors spread across the world.
The discovery belongs to Homo erectus, the first human species to leave Africa nearly 2 million years ago. Scientists say that jawbone is among the oldest human remains ever found outside Africa, confirming that this part of Georgia was a crucial waypoint in the early migration of humankind. The Orozmani site may be no bigger than 2 parking spaces, but is proving to be one of the richest. Alongside the jawbone, archaeologists have uncovered fossils of saber-toothed tigers, elephants, wolves, deer and giraffes, as well as caches of simple stone tools. These finds offer a rare glimpse into the environment where early humans lived, hunted and adapted.
So this is such a small site, yes, but it's so rich with bones. I mean, my second day I found a nice little ankle bone, nice little articulation of the astragalus, some foot bones as well. So you go down 5 centimeters every time you go. There's a good chance you're going to find something. And when we look between the 2 different lava flows, I mean, that anywhere we see that, this could be the same thing. So there's so much to be found.
By analyzing the remains, researchers hope to answer key questions about survival: what these first migrants ate, how they coped with new climates, and what conditions allowed them to thrive so far from Africa.
If you want to study how adaptable these early humans were, in which kind of environments they were able to live, these are key locations, because these really, if you think about these early humans that were expanding out of Africa, they were evolved in African environments, and now they were dispersing out of Africa. And here we have this sort of very early hub of these early humans.
The discovery also adds to a pattern of finds in Georgia. At nearby Dmanisi, scientists have already uncovered 1.8 million-year-old human skulls, and in 2022, a tooth from the same period was unearthed close to Orozmani. Together, they confirmed the region as one of the world's most important windows into early human history. Archaeologists say that with every new season at Orozmani, more fragments of early life are revealed, and each one brings us closer to understanding the origins of humanity itself. It's Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, A News.
And after the break, we will discuss what the possible dissolution of the OSCE Minsk Group means for regional diplomacy and the future of Armenia-Azerbaijan relations. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Orkun Amashov. Welcome to Dialogue of Civilizations. No man is an island entire of itself. Our true connections as species go far beyond digital technology. In this exciting new series, I'll be exploring a vast and fascinating history of connections between civilizations and revealing secret bonds that have helped societies, cultures, and religions peacefully coexist. Join me and let's explore together.
Welcome back to A News. Now we turn our attention to a major development in the South Caucasus. Following the 8th of August joint declaration, Azerbaijan and Armenia have jointly called for the dissolution of the OSCE Minsk Group and its subsidiary structures. Once the central international mechanism for resolving the Karabakh conflict, the Minsk Group has long been seen by Baku as obsolete. Now, with a formal decision expected from OSCE member states on the 1st of September, the region faces a potential shift in its diplomatic landscape. To help us unpack these developments, we're joined by Sultan Zahidov, a leading advisor at the Air Center, speaking to us from Baku, Azerbaijan. Sultan, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Sultan, could you briefly summarize the key points of the 8th of August joint declaration?
I believe the dissolution of the OSCE Minsk Group is indeed a significant development, as it was announced by the Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov that the OSCE member states were expected to officially dissolve the Minsk Group on September 1st. And as we all know, earlier on August 8th, a joint declaration was concluded between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and one of the provisions of this declaration stipulated that the foreign ministers of the both parties would jointly appeal to the chairperson in office of the OSCE Minsk Group with respect to the dissolution of this group and its related institution. As a matter of fact, we all know that this has been one of the key conditions put forward by Azerbaijan in order to finalize the peace treaty, the terms of which were agreed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of both Azerbaijan and Armenia back in March 2025.
Sultan, from Baku's perspective, why is the Minsk Group considered obsolete?
As a matter of fact, the Minsk Group became defunct right after the 2020 Second Karabakh War. and after 2023, when Azerbaijan conducted anti-terror measures to end separatism, and Azerbaijan finally restored its territorial integrity and sovereignty. And even prior to the Second Karabakh War, as a result of which Azerbaijan ended the 30-year-long conflict, OEC Minsk Group had indeed been obsolete in dealing with Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, in settling this conflict, even though in 1990s and in 2000s, the Minsk Group had put forward certain proposals, but those proposals did not do anything else other than prolonging the status quo, which were not in line with the international principles and international norms. So therefore, as Azerbaijan wants to establish sustainable peace in the region, we know that immediately after the Second Karabakh War, Azerbaijan put forward the peace agenda. Five principles of peace were put forward by Azerbaijan. Therefore, what Azerbaijan wants is to eliminate the remnants of the past conflict. And one such remnant is definitely the OEC Minsk Group. And another one, by the way, is the Constitution of Armenia, whose preamble contains territorial claims on Azerbaijan. So to build this peace, the relics of the past conflict should be eliminated, and Azerbaijan therefore wants to sweep those remnants of the past conflict under the rug.
And how do you assess the reactions of other OSCE member states, particularly those holding co-chairmanships?
Of course, the precise thoughts with respect to their position cannot be put forward right now, but I believe United States supports it, because we all know that the Washington Declaration, joint declaration in Washington, was signed with the participation of Donald Trump, and he personally witnessed the signing of this declaration, which means United States supports it. With respect to other members, I believe based on the past declarations issued by them, for example, past declaration issued by Russian Federation, we can assume that they will not protest it, they will not go against it. And hopefully the member states will all give their green lights, and ultimately the September 1st will be the end of the official end of the de facto defunct OEC Minsk Group, which has been ineffective in dealing with the past conflict.
Sultan, what position do you anticipate Armenia taking regarding the dissolution?
Well, based on the, let's say, declaration, joint declaration, which was signed by the Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, we can assume that Armenia will definitely, let's say, give his green light to that one, as what we see based on the statements issued by Pashinyan, we can assume that Pashinyan gave his consent with respect to the dissolution of the OEC Minsk Group, even though in the past we all know that Armenia was kind of trying to turn a blind eye to that one, was trying to block it. But the things started to change, especially after Donald Trump came to power in the United States. And the result, what we witnessed in Washington, the signing of the joint declaration, might be an indication of the fact that Armenia now is willing to, let's say, dissolve, is willing to, let's say, do its bit in the dissolution of OEC Minsk Group.
So could we see the emergence of a new framework or mechanisms to replace the Minsk Group?
I believe there is no need to there is no necessity to replace Minsk Group, because what was the primary goal of the Minsk Group? To settle the conflict. And if the conflict is over, there are just a few things, let's say, to be implemented. And one of them, of course, the amendment to the Constitution of Armenia. And then, of course, as soon as this amendment is implemented, then the final peace treaty then will be signed. So therefore, we don't need anything which is, let's say, which resembles to OEC Minsk Group. But of course, they might be a necessity for other institutions in order to help the parties to, let's say, further achieve the integration, helping both parties to implement the provisions which are enshrined in the peace, on the text of the peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Other than that, there is no necessity for such an institution as OSCE Minsk Group as the conflict is over.
Sultan, how do you foresee the broader geopolitical dynamics in the South Caucasus shifting as a result?
Well, it should be stated that the geopolitics of South Caucasus has indeed shifted tremendously right after the Second Karabakh War, and of course the Russian-Ukrainian war and other processes impacted it as well. And the latest Washington declaration, after that declaration we saw certain resentment coming from Russia and Iran. There are certain, let's say, political figures who are against the so-called Trump route for international peace and prosperity, so Zangezur, let's say, road. But nevertheless, I believe this geopolitical shift might very well lead to the durable peace in the region. The most important thing is now to make sure that to work with other regional actors such as Russia and Iran in order to increase the confidence and make sure that those parties are assured that these projects such as Zangezur, opening of Zangezur corridor or any other project initiated by Azerbaijan is not directed against any other country but serves to the one purpose, and that purpose is the development, stability and prosperity of the region.
And finally, what message would you like to convey to the international community regarding this pivotal moment?
Well, with respect to the dissolution of the OSCE Minsk Group, I believe that's your...
Yes.
Well, of course, my message would be to support these initiatives to, let's say, build a lasting peace in the region. And OSCE Minsk Group is one of the obstacles, has been one of the obstacles to achieve the lasting peace, and therefore international community should support it as well.
Sultan Zaidov, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your insights. We truly appreciate your time and expertise in helping our audience understand this critical moment in the South Caucasus. Thanks a lot.
It was a pleasure for me. Thanks for having me.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News for more.